All right.
So you can go ahead and let everyone in.
Admitting all. Here we go.
Aloha, everyone. Nice to see you all. So great to see everybody. We'll go ahead and get started in just a minute while we're letting people in. I'm going to go through and do a few announcements. So aloha, want to welcome everyone to Hawaiian Islands. I'm Sean Lether, and I want to give a special welcome to everyone joining us live on the Conscious Awakening Network. I'm going to make a few announcements and then we'll get started. On the third Tuesday of this month, October 15th, we'll be having our monthly Hawaiian Islands Experiencer Sharing Group. Anyone who has had any spiritually transformative experience, whether it's an NDE, after-death communication, prophetic dreams, or if you're just interested in listening, you're invited to join us. And we will put a link to that in the chat. We'll also put a link to the newsletter, which if you're not currently subscribed, you can subscribe. This event will be recorded and you can watch a replay of it on our Hawaiian Islands YouTube channel. If everyone can take a quick second, go to the Hawaiian Islands YouTube and make sure that you're subscribed, then you'll get to see the replay. Lastly, I want to remind you that these events are a labor of love for me, and it's very important that we keep them free. Your generosity helps keep all of our events free and support sharing the wisdom and love of NDEs and SDEs with the world. Please partner with us and donate today, and we'll put the link in the chat. Okay, I think we have everything out of the way. Make sure everyone's muted if you can. Aloha and welcome. I'm your host, Sean Lether. We're excited to be broadcasting live on the Conscious Awakening Network. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tonight's guest, Eric Taylor, faced a life-altering near-death experience. He battled and survived COVID and valley fever, spent 40 days in a coma, and another 45 days in the hospital recovering. This near-death encounter catalyzed the expansion of his spiritual gifts and abilities. Eric is a professional intuitive astrologer and relationship coach from New York. Beyond his expertise in astrology, Eric wears many hats, including actor, writer, MC, sports radio host, and former teacher for disabled children in the Bronx. Since relocating to Arizona, he has dedicated himself to elevating the collective through his diverse pursuits. A dedicated husband and father of 4 sons, Eric is driven by a higher purpose, embodying resilience and a profound commitment to positively impacting the world. You can find more about Eric at his website, bigeastrology.com. Welcome, Eric. I am so glad you are here.
Thank you so much, Sean. I appreciate the introduction, and it is my honor and pleasure to be here this evening.
So why don't you share with us what happened to you?
Well, let's go on a journey. Well, I just want to thank everyone for attending. It's greatly appreciated, and I thank you for Sean and IAMS and this group. I presented this year at IAMS in Phoenix for the first time on a panel, and it was truly an honor and a pleasure, and it was nice to be around a lot of like-minded people and spirits and people who've been in the trenches, or people at least that even understand or understand NDEs. So my story, well, I got to go from the beginning. Born and raised, native New Yorker, New York City. I got married in 2008, and my wife had a son, my stepson, who I raised as my own, and I was taking care of my mother, who was a survivor of breast and brain cancer. And we got married and then had our first son together. And then I was quickly a father of two boys. And then we decided to move to Scottsdale, Arizona. The wear and tear of New York City, the taxes, fighting for a seat on the 2 train to go to work to teach in the Bronx, which I have did since 2001, kind of fell into that when New York City shut down after 9/11, and I was a professional actor. And when we moved to Arizona, I was excited, blazing a new trail. I was recovering from ankle surgery and had a second surgery in Arizona, and I'm in Scottsdale. Fast forward, the immune system was a little weakened from the 2 surgeries, as anyone could imagine. And then I got this wonderful fungus called valley fever. It's in the Western Hemisphere of the United States, dry climates in like California, Fresno, Washington, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, stuff like that. And it just came from up under the ground, so innocent. I just went outside looking for the cable guy. And it was one of those puffy, cloudy, yellow days. If you've ever been to Arizona, sometimes we have them. I kind of have one right now, kind of dusty and windy. And literally, like the movie Ghostbusters, a gust of wind just like went into my mouth and throat. And I'm like, I'm coughing. I come inside and I told my wife, I said, babe, I think I'm going to be sick. Because it felt like literally like an alien invasion. It was not nice. And then the next day, I wound up in the ER. I told them exactly what happened. And, you know, doctors in Arizona, you would think they would kind of get it in terms of what the fungus and the dust and valley fever could potentially be. But they just tested me for EKG and other things and told me it was stress and anxiety because my wife was pregnant with twin boys. So then I got sicker and sicker, but became a father of 4 in August of 2013. Fast forward, you know, the valley fever kind of took over my life. It was I call it my own internal Vietnam, because it didn't go to my lungs, which is where it normally shows up, and then they would see on the x-ray a nodule. I tend to not do things the easy way. In astrology, I'm a Scorpio rising, Capricorn moon, and Virgo sun. And I guess I like challenges. So it spread throughout my body. And I was producing mucus every day as if I had the flu. And if you go on the Mayo Clinic website, they will say about 65% of the cases can go missed or undiagnosed. Well, that's what I went through. Western medicine had no answers for me. By the time they checked my blood, you couldn't find it there. But after going to an acupuncturist, which a dear friend of mine recommended, I found a naturopathic doctor. And in his office, they used the electrodermal screening, which is popular in Germany, England, and Cuba, and is, you know, in recent years started to pick up here in America. And it measures through your fingertips. And they saw, I think, a small trace of Lyme, but they noticed the valley fever. Yada, yada. I'm doing God's first medicine, leeches, $40 a pop, shaved off all my hair, had leeches going down like the back of my head, my neck. I put them on my ankle too, since I had the 2 surgeries. And if you don't know anything about leeches, they are amazing creatures because they kind of like dig a tunnel in your body. And they put in their homeopathic medicine, which is called the hirogene. And then you secrete, quite literally, probably about 20 hours after, which scared my oldest son to death. He didn't want to go to bed because he saw dad on the bed just like bleeding out. It was blood and mucus everywhere, like a pus. At the time when I got married, just to give you an idea, I'm 5'11". I was like 187 after the surgeries, maybe 192. At my worst in about 2015. And it was all inflammation because it flooded the lymphatic tract. I maxed out, no exaggeration, at 5'11", 240 pounds. I was in so much pain each morning just to get up, and I couldn't do a regular job. I was doing a sports radio show, my buddy and I, but we weren't really making any money trying to get advertisers, but very successful sports radio show, but I call it like in the minor leagues over the internet. And I was in so much pain. I had to have ice and heat every day, 2 Percocets just to get up out of the bed. It got to a point where it hurt to physically hold my newborn twins and feed them with the bottle. You know, I would push through and do it, but it caused a lot of pain. My arches collapsed in my feet. I already did have the wonderful gift from my father. I have big Barney Rubble feet, and they're flat feet with loose ligaments, and my arches collapsed. So I had 2 foot surgeries on each foot. My left wrist, I wound up getting carpal tunnel, had another surgery. I didn't realize till years later, because another doctor told me, that for melanated people, the valley fever spreads and travels throughout the body. I had knee pain, and the doctor was like, no, nothing's wrong with your knee, Eric, it's the valley fever. So fast forward, I start to get better. I start researching. That's what got me back into astrology. And COVID comes. Before they said it was here, it already hit us in January 2020. My mother had to go to the hospital. She was put on a ventilator the day after the Super Bowl. I remember my wife and I were sick, and maybe one of my children. I've had walking pneumonia, the flu, things like that, bronchitis. This was pretty bad. I remember one night going to bed, and I was sick for about 3 weeks. One night going to bed, I just said a little prayer. I said, God, please, just let me feel better and wake up in the morning. It didn't feel good, but nothing compared to round 2. In 2021, late August, and during the pandemic, we were like 10 feet apart, complete mass lockdown, because I was taking care of my mother. My mother, like I said, the survivor of breast and brain cancer, but then in 2013, because of a UTI, she wound up in a wheelchair and had severe dementia that started to, kind of get stronger over the years. By the time, COVID hit, it was just locked down. August of 2021, my twins turned, I guess it was 7, and they, innocently wanted to have a little party. That turned into COVID coming through our home really strong, the Delta. We were in that COVID fog that maybe some of you have heard about, because on August 27th, my mom, her oxygen went to 88. And once you get to 88, you should go to the ER immediately. And that's what we did. My wife was 93, 92, but it was almost like we were all delusional, because when I was testing it on myself, I was 85, 79. I think on August 27th, when my mother went in, I may have been at 72. I should have gone with her. For some reason, we just thought it was not reading properly. Well, that was a huge mistake. Excuse me. On August 29th, I didn't feel good at all. And we called the ER. They wouldn't come in the home. It was like, toxic, so we had to come outside. They checked my oxygen, and it was at 56%. The ER gentleman said, Mr. Taylor, how are you walking and standing and talking? And I said, I don't know. And quickly what flashed in my head, because I'm always a sketch comic comedian and just, I love to laugh. I thought of Ben Stiller. I was like, strong like bull, I'm just being me here, But they rushed me to the hospital. But let me just say, before, my boys were crying. They were in the front yard, and my wife was really sick and just stressed and emotional. And as they were putting me on the gurney and putting me in the, in the ambulance, I said to them, I was like, boys, please don't cry. Remind you, this was August 29th. I said, Daddy's going to be okay. I'll see you in October. I don't know why I said that. It must have just come from my spirit guides or God, or I have no idea. They took me to the hospital. When I got there, they're hooking me up to stuff. I told them about the valley fever. And when you have valley fever, you cannot have steroids. They don't play well with it. And it was laying dormant. Usually between June and October, it's hot and dusty out here in Arizona. And sometimes it would reactivate, and I would get stiffness in the neck, and I would try to get diflucanazole, the medicine, which I could only get sparingly because I wasn't really diagnosed by Western medicine. Even though when I would take it, it would help me, and I would explain to them, well, if this helps me, and this is what it's for, let's put 2 and 2 together, and let's give me more of the medicine, but that wasn't happening. No matter what, anyway, as they were hooking me up to everything, the ER doctor came in, this woman. I wish I knew her name, a brunette, I knew that. She verbally assaulted me, yelled at me, screamed at me, foaming at the mouth all I could say was like a caged dog. It was crazy. And I was just like, she just said, "Oh, so you didn't take the vaccine? I bet you're going to tell all your friends to take it now. I bet you're going to take it now." And I'm just like, what? Listen, I didn't judge anyone that took it or didn't take it. I chose not to take it because of my prior health issues of the valley fever. And I spoke to my doctors. They had no answers. I also was born with an eye disease called retinitis pigmentosa, and it affects the rods and cones in the retina of your eyes. When I was 10 years old, they told me I would be completely blind by the age of 21. I'm 54 today, and that's not the case. I see you guys, and it's a beautiful crowd tonight. You guys look wonderful, okay? So she says all that, and I'm just looking at her like, "Are you gonna help me?" I don't know what to say to you right now. Like, you're absurd, right? Completely unprofessional. I get put upstairs. Each day I was in the hospital from August 29th. I was getting sicker and sicker. They denied me the monoclonal antibodies. I was delusional because I just got a new client for my, I think it was my Virgo birth chart sale. And so I was like thinking I could do a chart reading on the computer. And I had my wife send the computer to the hospital. I couldn't barely log into the computer, let alone lift up my hands by the time it was maybe the 31st. So each day it was getting worse. And then they denied me the monoclonal antibodies. They gave me remdesivir. They wouldn't allow my wife in the hospital. She came in, and let me backtrack. When I went in August 27th, my mother was down the hall. I immediately asked to go see her. They took me in the wheelchair to go see her. She was doing way better than me. She just had the little oxygen in the nose, no ventilator, anything. She looked a little frustrated and annoyed. She, at this point, was not able to swallow, so she was on a tube feed. We had her on Kate Farms, which is the best tube feed, by the way, and that will come up later in my story. It's organic and brown rice, fruits and vegetables, and very healthy. Not what they normally give you in the hospital. So I kissed her hand. I told her I loved her. And, each day after that, I would just see her on the iPad, and I would talk to the doctors and nurse, because my mother was nonverbal. And I had a PhD in speaking Cheryl. That's my mother's name, and I could but anyway, they allowed my wife, I think it was September 5th, to come into the hospital to see her. Well, she knew and heard that I wasn't getting the best care, so she snuck down to come see me. You would have thought she had a loaded weapon with her. They came in, foaming at the mouth, police, security guards. "Get out of here. What are you doing? You got to get out of here." And she's like, she brought me some food. She was just checking on me, because I'm visually impaired. And, with the COVID, my vision was actually getting worse. They gave me steroids, the remdesivir, no monoclonal antibodies. I've been meaning to ask one of my friends is an ER doctor, and I always forget to ask him because I don't know what this was. And maybe one of you guys know about it, but I have no clue. But they told me I had to I did it 3 times, maybe the 31st, the 3rd, and then the final time on the 6th. There was almost like a gas mask that I was putting on, and it really went over your entire head. And they said, "Mr. Taylor, this will help you get out of here alive. You gotta put this on." The first night I tried it, it was okay. I tried it again, either the 1st or 2nd. I couldn't take it. It made me scared, paranoid. I was on it for 20 minutes, and I was like, "I can't take it. I can't breathe. Please take it off." And then, this always makes my wife upset. On September 5th and September 6th, even though I am this spiritual astrology guy, don't get it twisted. I'm still a New Yorker. I'm a hip hop dude. I'm an MC, and I'm a sports nut. I had 2 fantasy football drafts, and I drafted from the hospital bed while I'm pretty much on my deathbed. I'm functioning at this point, you guys. I got down to September 6th, 10% of one lung, maybe 15%. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, I did my draft with my good buddy from New York on the 5th, and then again on the 6th. On the 6th, when I was done with the draft, I was exhausted. Fantasy football drafts can be about an hour to hour and a half. I was tired. I was just worn out. And I said to my wife, I'm going to put on this mask. They asked me to put it on again tonight. And then I'm just going to, I'm going to go to sleep. I love you, and I'll talk to you in the morning. I was beat. Well, I do believe I put the mask on that night. I can barely remember. And the adventure begins. Around 11 p.m., my wife got this phone call, panting. Mrs. Taylor, your husband's organs are failing. Death is imminent. We'll call you back in an hour. Click. This wasn't the rush of COVID. The hospital was almost like a ghost town, empty. But they gave her all of 8 to 9 seconds. And I assume they never actually said, but at that point, and my wife kind of, they kind of indicated that I basically had coded. And they had to bring me back to life, put me on the ventilator. They called back in an hour. They told her what happened, that I was on the ventilator. And then I went to the other world. I never saw a moment of darkness. I did not know that I was in a coma. I just began experiencing different movie vignettes. I would say maybe it was 80-20, mostly negative, some positive. I hear amazing stories from so many beautiful people of the light and Jesus and all this. That's not what Eric Taylor experienced. I immediately just started seeing little scenes in the hospital. My wife was not able to come see me physically until September 20th. Over the phone, they would do the calls and FaceTime, and this was September 6th. My birthday, September 10th. So it was right before my 51st birthday. So my wife and my friends, they rushed together. Everybody sent recordings wishing me happy birthday, love and prayers. And my wife, actually, I think they played it for me over the phone. She said it was September 11th, that they couldn't get it by my birthday. But they sang happy birthday to me on the 10th. Well, that's happening. One of the positive memories, I'll start off with the positive first, was in my realm, I went to the best birthday party ever. It was a black tie affair. I was like in a tux. It was a huge ballroom, and every person from every time period of my life was there. Elementary school, high school, junior high school, college, community college. Before I went to Sullivan County Community College, upstate New York, and then I'm a graduate of the University of Maryland at College Park. Friends from there, my friends from my acting career, my teaching, friends from Arizona, just everybody. Family as well. And I'm at the party pointing, looking at everybody, and I'm just like, I guess this was the dream party I've always wanted, because I surely have never had anything like that. I've had some good birthday parties, but not like this. And it was just fun. But then I assume that is when my wife was playing those messages. So it's almost like what was happening in the real world was spilling into my dimension in the spiritual realm, because that was the experience that happened at the party. Another time, my wife had said that they were playing my music, my love, my hip hop music, my first love. And I like the intelligent, conscious stuff. KRS-One, Rakim, De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest. And they played a new song that it was just released that I loved with Nas and Lauryn Hill. It was like a kind of a nice comeback for her, this song called Nobody. And the doctors were kind of excited because as they were playing the music, no exaggeration, I started like dancing, like, being the hip hop head. I'm like bopping and shaking my head. My wife and kids were like, oh, go daddy, like, yay, excited. And because they knew that I was in there were signs of life. But then the bells started ringing. And the doctor was like, stop, cut it off. And my wife was like, no, what happened? What? Is he okay? Did I hurt him? And they were like, no, 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 his pressure is going up. You have to turn it off. But don't worry, Mrs. Taylor, he's going to be okay. But this is a good sign. We know that he's hearing something and he's in there. But that didn't happen too much. Most of the time, I was just like a limp noodle and non-responsive and nothing. For me, the adventures of darkness just begun. My wife and I have just made it this summer, 16 years of marriage, happily married. But unfortunately in COVID, I felt like not only was my wife trying to kill me, she wound up having 2 boyfriends and then a third. One of the boyfriends was her ex-husband, who my wife was a survivor of domestic violence, but it was like her ex-husband, but he was not, just African American. He was actually like African. So it was him, but not him, if that makes sense. And then the other gentleman was another African American man, but younger. So I kind of laugh and joke. I was hot, she was dating a younger man. I was not happy. But it was weird because he was almost like not a guardian angel. That's, gosh, please forgive, that's the wrong term. He was almost like a spirit guide of like Satan, because it was like he would take me on these experiences, like he was always there. There were times where I would be in the hospital and my wife would try to help me, and either of the 2 boyfriends, they would get upset and angry and hit her if she tried to help me. The younger man, who was more around than her ex-husband, he, interestingly enough, I come to realize now, even talking with Sean about it, he was actually someone that I had knew who was kind of like a new acquaintance and a big fan of my astrology work and was into music and stuff. And he was trying to steal like my ID, my health insurance cards, my debit card, things like that. But he was always around, and he would kind of be there to persuade my wife to ignore me when I needed help. Now, my wife was at the hospital. We were at the hospital by my house. The kids were homeschooling, so she would do 2-a-days, come in the morning, check on me, and this is obviously after September 20th, come and check on me, and then go home, help them boys with lunch and school, and then come back in the evening. But for me, in the spirit realm, I thought my wife got a job in the hospital because she was there so much. And I've come to realize now, which this is still happening for me every day, you guys, I get revelation and understanding of all that I was experiencing, because my soul was out of my body and I was remote viewing to the point that I thought my wife, because she was there so much, got a job in the hospital. I went on different journeys. I was going to London with my son, and I believe it was for potential eye surgery, but it didn't work out and something happened. And when I came back, we were in this like auditorium, but it was just a lot of commotion and there was just a lot of negative people, and people were trying to separate me from my family and my son. Another time I went to California. I was in California a lot and going through some spiritual tests with a spiritual like guru woman, but with different people. But at one point I was getting on a ship to go to the planet Mars, which is ironic, being a Scorpio rising, that's my chart ruler. So, it was going to Mars. But what was really fascinating is that not only was my wife cheating on me and these guys were hitting her, I died 3 times while I was in coma, in the spirit realm, not in real life. But back to the other side, I was on the verge because of the tube feed they were feeding me. It was either Jevity or A+. Please, if you ever go to a hospital, reject those and stay away from them. You want the Kate Farms. It started to make me borderline diabetic. They started to give me insulin shots. Never in my life besides when I got sick with the valley fever, was I ever overweight, but never, no high blood pressure, no diabetes, nothing. And it took a while, but my wife had realized, but this wasn't until we got to the second hospital. So we'll get back to that in a second. But, I'm getting sicker and sicker while I'm in dementia in terms of my blood sugar. September, maybe 23rd, my wife said there was a traveling doctor who happened to come in, and she felt like he was just an angel. He was Eastern European, and she said he was kind of like, pot-bellied, chubby guy, but just so jovial. And the minute he read my file, he's like, wait a minute, this gentleman has valley fever. Let's put him on diflucanazole drip. I wind up getting the medicine that I needed all those years since 2013 at the highest amount and levels that I ever received. And it wind up, eliminating the valley fever from my body, I think really forever. Now, some doctors debate that I should still take diflucanazole for the rest of my life because they feel that it just lays dormant in you. But needless to say, this doctor put me on this drip around September 22nd or 23rd. I'm saying the date because later on the doctors were caught in a lie, but we'll get to that. So, so I get that. I'm still at the hospital by my house. Then I started not only going through these spiritual tests, my wife, it felt like she had children, a little girl, and I think it was either a little girl and a little boy. And at the time I was confused because they were almost just laying on her like a stuffed animal. And unfortunately, before we had our twins, we actually lost, I believe, 2 or 3 children. And now, at the time, I didn't realize this in coma. But obviously, as the years have played out, 3 years later, I realized that those were the children that we lost. Because they weren't like these 2 gentlemen who were, chocolate brothers. They were lighter skinned children like myself, and my wife is very fair. And so it was really wild because I'm seeing these kids, and there was this one vignette where they had hit my wife so bad, we were leaving the hospital and we were in the car, and I'm in this wheelchair. Now, meanwhile, these vignettes, I feel like I was playing out the experiences that my parents went through. Because after the first time I died, the second time I died, I was shot in my chest and my heart outside of my garage. But after the first time when I came back, I realized there is no death. There's only eternal life. So I almost kind of laughed after they shot me because I was like, okay, I'm going to go through this again. But I say that to say the experience in the wheelchair. My mother was in the wheelchair for years. Being shot in the chest and heart, my father was murdered when I was 6 years old in the chest and heart in Harlem. And then before I turned 8, I was 7 years old, my mother was shot, point blank range in the head and left for dead by my uncle, my father's younger brother. So had a pretty challenging childhood. And then at 10, so 6, 7, and then 10, oh, you'll be blind by 21. So, but I was the happiest kid in the world. You would have never known that I experienced or went through any of that. I didn't lead with it, never wore it on my sleeve. It just wasn't who I was. But when the second time after I was killed or died and was shot, I had the opportunity to go to my home. So from the hospital in coma, I astral traveled to my house. But I could have gone in a room to see my now 15-year-old, at the time 12-year-old, 5 years into the future in one room. I didn't choose that. And I went to my living room sofa where there was the younger boyfriend of my wife. Thought that was weird. And I see my wife talking to a friend and business associate. She was phasing out of business and she was helping her with some numbers and stuff. But they were now remind you, they also had were just healing also from strains of COVID as well. They just weren't as sick as I was. So I wonder if this could have affected it. But I say that to tell you because they were in, and I know you'll remember the technology, they were in 90s VHS technology. Way different from what we have now, right? And one of my twins, they're now 11, was 8 at the time. He came over and gave me a hug. He's told me that he said something. I don't remember him saying anything, but he came over and gave me a hug and then just kind of walked off. He was in 4K vibrant color technology. And for me, I think of that as just the frequencies. And then when he left, I kind of got up off the sofa. My wife and our friend, she left. And then I saw my wife, and meanwhile, I saw them around the table, go to the backyard, just walking around. But then she was gone, and my wife was in the kitchen with the boyfriend, and she's giggling, and and I'm like, oh, I'm so angry. I was hot, okay? I was pissed off, and I'm not a jealous man, but you could imagine, because this all seemed so real to me, and I couldn't understand why they couldn't see me or hear me. But there were times where they would directly talk to me, but at this moment, it's like they were ignoring me. It was almost like I was looking at them through like a glass or through a window, but I was just like right there looking at them. And they're kind of joking and flirting and a kiss and a hug. And anyway, I just wound up, leaving, or I don't know what happened. I was just back in the hospital. While I was in the coma and in the hospital, all the vignettes, one stood out extremely strong. Actually, let me backtrack, because there was a time when I was going back and forth to the hospital and to the house. And one time my wife and kids took myself and my mother to the hospital, and we had to like get out of these wheelchairs and go into this cylinder tube. And my mom, who, she couldn't walk, barely stand on her own, she was able to get out of the wheelchair and go into this tube, and I couldn't. And then I wound up, having an accident and urinating on myself. And there was like, in the hospital, there was like a school trip, and my wife and kids, people were laughing at me, complete humiliation. And I just couldn't understand, I tried and I tried, I couldn't get up. And then I was like upset and embarrassed and frustrated that people were teasing me and laughing at me. But I just, I couldn't do anything. And then there was times when I would go to my home, and it wasn't my home. I live in a ranch style house. We had a basement. And then there were people in my home that, besides the two boyfriends, there was my niece and then one of my wife's close friends. And they were both really mean and nasty to me and to my children. And they were almost like complete demons. And they were like supporting my wife cheating on me. And the men, they had kids or other people, and they were mistreating my kids. And I think one of them may have touched one of the boys inappropriately. And I was just so frustrated and angry. And it was like I couldn't get my wife's attention to be a good mother, nothing. Like it was, it was enraging, but I had no control. And I just remember there was a basement in my home, and I don't have one. And it was actually like this sex dungeon. And they would like have sex parties at night and invite people over. And I mean, it was completely just disgusting and demonic. And God, Sean's met my wife, if you ever met my wife, it's so not her. She's more like a prude. She wouldn't mind me saying that. I don't know if she's on here or whatever, because she'd be like, yeah, I'm a prude. You know what I mean? So it was just wild, okay? Completely wild. So they're trying to check on me. They told my wife, I'm still in this hospital. Towards the end of September, early October, they start to strip some of the medicine away from me. Mrs. Taylor, your husband's going to start to, because, after she came the 20th, she would like come and she'd shave me and groom me, and the nurses were like in awe of how sweet she was and loving on me. And they would, she was doting on me and taking care of me, and they would just, totally be in awe of the love. But she just wasn't understanding when they would strip the medicine. They told her he'll start to move his hands or eyes will flicker, and nothing happened. So they were nervous. They ordered a CAT scan of my brain. Came back normal. But I was just out cold, completely out. Nothing. They waited, maybe this was because I got transferred October 10th to the second hospital where they were trying to, they do specialize in trach removals and, more other care. She said it was maybe like October 4th, 5th, 6th. They took all the medicine away. Mrs. Taylor, he's going to wake up. He's not sedated at all. He should wake up tomorrow. His eyes will flicker, his hands will move. Nothing again. They ordered another test, but this time they did the MRI. Insurance had to improve it and all that. And then the insurance denied me being transferred to this second hospital. But the first hospital, Scottsdale Shea, was like, we can't do anything else for him. We've taken off all the medicine. He's kind of just, we don't know. And then after that MRI, it came back normal. They sent me October 10th to St. Joseph's, which ironically enough was my stepfather's name, Joseph. And my mother got saved at that hospital because she, at the senior center, they gave her some huge piece of broccoli. She choked on it and almost died. It was on a ventilator. She had been to the hospital so many times before this COVID. My mother has, like 9 lives, right? She was just amazing. I mean, obviously, if she was shot point blank range in the head, and I didn't tell you, she drove 9 blocks in her red Mercedes-Benz to my father's store that my stepfather was running at the time. And then she went to the hospital. And this is like 77, before 78. The doctor became famous. They put removed bullet fragments from her head and a mesh screen, but she had a bullet fragment still in her head and could never have an MRI. Don't you know how God works? When she had the brain cancer, they were able, it metastasized from the breast to the brain, they were able to go right in and remove that tumor because the bullet had cleared the path for that tumor. That's how good God is, okay? Meanwhile, my godmother had the same thing, and she died within 2 months of brain cancer. So as I get transferred to the next hospital on October 10th, I'm not aware, totally out of it. This is all what I'm hearing after I awaken from other people, that I wasn't there. Later on, I had met the nurse 2 or 3 weeks after I had awakened, and she walked in the hallway and she looked at my room. She's like, "Are you Eric Taylor?" And I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh my God, it's so good to see you." And I'm like, "It's so good to be seen." And she was like, "I was there the night you came. I was the nurse on staff." She said, "I said a prayer for you. I did not think you were going to make it. She's like, nobody was home. You were not there. I didn't think you were going to survive." And I said, "Well, thank you for praying for me. I needed it, and I'm here." I went through so many more spiritual tests, but another one that I want to share was I was in a restaurant in Phoenix, and this beautiful Latina woman was, again, she was going through my wallet trying to steal my debit card. But I was trapped in this basement, and there were these fires and tiki torches, and it was very dark, dim lit, but I don't want to say hell because it was in a Phoenix restaurant, but it just was dark and nasty, and it just felt like there were demons. And I wasn't tied up, but I was sitting on a seat, but I was trapped. I couldn't move, and there was a white light underneath me. And all I could do, and to think, to do, and say to get out of there, I just said 3 times, proud and loud, "God, Jesus, Mom, my wife's name, and my 4 sons. God, Jesus, Mom, my wife, and my 4 sons. And I said it 3 times. And then I was just like released. And then I had another experience, this time in my hospital room. There was literally the respiratory nurse, nurses, doctors. There was about 30 people in the room, and they were trying to kill me. The respiratory nurse comes up to me. She took away the oxygen, and then they were sitting there just staring at me, quiet, watching me basically lose my breath and die. So I started sucking and catching air in my breath. And then I said, you better give me back my oxygen. If you let me die, my family is going to come after you. And they just looked at me. It was just like that hollow stare. Kind of menacing, but kind of just like they weren't there. And it was just so, and the respiratory nurse, she was in many different vignettes, just like this one nurse. And these are people that I actually saw later on after I awakened in real life. And then I caught more breath and I said, if you let me die, I will haunt you in the afterlife. I said, you have no idea who I am. I said, I am a spiritual giant, and you better give me back my oxygen so I can survive and live, or I will torture you and haunt you in the spirit realm for the rest of your lives. And then they gave me back the oxygen. and that, is kind of why the title is Faith Over Fear. There were other tests. I had my family members fly out from New York, and they were trying to get me to, I wanted to go to Columbia Presbyterian, the hospital that saved my mother, the hospital that I was born, in Washington Heights in New York. And I was going to leave and be transferred, but then my wife, even though she was cheating on me, she convinced me, don't leave for the kids. And I was like, okay. But it was just complete evil and torture and just meanness and darkness and violence and sex and just, I still don't really understand why, except for the fact that I know now my soul chose this, and that it was really an initiation to up-level spiritually and to break generational curses and to let Satan know no more. My family and I had been through enough. I told you about all of my childhood, but since we were in Arizona, the valley fever, after the twins were born, my 4-year-old had emphysema, strep pneumonia, and almost died and had surgery, was in the ICU for 23 days. Then 2 years later, that same spiritual twin that came to me, in the 4K when I was in coma, he went to the hospital and he had the same lung thing, but he didn't need the surgery. They just put a tube in to drain the fluid. And we've dealt with bullying with the kids and racism. And Arizona and life was just kicking our butts. And it was like I went on this divine assignment to just cut the cords and just clear all this energy. And I guess I was built for it. I guess I could handle it. But when I got to that other hospital, I know that it was, I believe October 13th. I was there on the 10th. I awakened in the middle of the night. Visiting hours ended at 8. I don't know what time it was. Complete darkness. I saw a light in the hallway. But, this is like day 37, so I was, no strength. I'm trying to lift my hand. I had my locks. They weren't as long, but there was sweat on my forehead and my brow. I was just trying to lift up my arm to wipe it, but the nurse's aide, he was a young Latino guy, and he wouldn't turn on the lights, and he kind of just wouldn't look at me, and he was just like, Mr. Taylor, you got to stop doing that. You can't pull out your vent. And I'm like trying to move or talk. I'm on the trach and all this stuff. I just wanted him to help me to wipe my eyes and the sweat, and then they put restraints on me. Oh God, it was. And it physically hurt my hands. I'm on the restraints. I'm in the bed. All I could do was go back to sleep. I was like, screw it, I'll go back to coma land. Like, I was so frustrated because I couldn't communicate. I didn't have my glasses. I couldn't see. It's dark. I just awakened. And so I went back to sleep. 2 days later, October 15th, it happened again. I awakened at night. The exact same thing happened. And it was him again. And I got put in restraints again. The next morning, October 16th, I had awakened. But before I explain what happened there, the last vignette and experience that I remember through this torturous journey of spiritual tests, and I went through one test, but I don't want to get into it. I don't want to offend it. And it's not offensive, but they basically wanted me, the spiritual guru, they wanted me, I'll just say it, they wanted me to be the leader of a gay pride parade in San Francisco. And they wanted me to cut off half my locks and color them. And I'm not homophobic, professional actor, plenty friends, gay, lesbian, have no issues with anybody. But I'm not gay, so I told them I can't do that. That's not who I am. I can't lead this parade. And I almost feel like that may have been like a spiritual test to get me to do things that were against who I am deep down inside. Even went on a date with a nurse that my wife had encouraged me to do, and I didn't kiss her, didn't do anything. I say all this to say because the last experience was my wife had told me she wanted a divorce. She was going to take my older, the 15-year-old who was 12 at the time, to Atlanta. He is a talented actor. She was going to move to Atlanta to like do some acting and go to like Tyler Perry Studios or whatever. She was going to leave me in Arizona with the twins, come and check on me every 2 weeks while I was still recovering and in the wheelchair, and that after I got better, then she would just kind of be gone with the other son in Atlanta and have the divorce. And in the hospital room, the last images I saw, my wife tells me this, and no lie, on the laptop, she showed me on the computer. And by the way, I saw the technology of the future. I saw apps floating outside of the computer screen, and you would just touch them and move. I saw kind of like in Total Recall, where you would just kind of walk into a room and be like, hey, call Sean, and he would just pop up on the screen on the wall. I was seeing the technology that is coming of the future. But my wife showed me on a laptop our lives together, from the wedding to the kids, all this beautiful stuff. And then, as she tells me about the divorce, on the laptop, she's showing me a preview of her life in Atlanta with her new husband. And I'm just like, I couldn't understand. And I told her, I said, I don't know why you're doing this. Why are you breaking up our family? And I said to her, I love you. And when you realize what you're doing, I want you, and you can, come back to me. I believe in us and our love. Our story is just beautiful, and we're soulmates and best friends. And I didn't give up. I didn't quit. I said, I will be here when you come back. And that was the last thing. And she's playing the vignette. So then October 16th, I finally awaken. But this time it's in the morning. And this angelic nurse comes into the room, and it's lights, and I can see, and it's the morning. And she comes in and she's like, oh my God, who put these restraints on you? I'm so sorry. Come here. And she comes and she's all loving and doting. And I'm like, oh yes, thank you. And she takes off the restraints and she's like, just checking on me and this and that. And then eventually my wife comes, and this is like the comedy, right? She's like, oh, hi, baby. And I'm trying to talk through, I would say the vent, but I wasn't on a vent anymore. I'm talking through the trach. But it just feels like this huge tube or whatever. And I'm trying to talk through it, and you could hear my voice, but it's like, oh, like, rawr. And I said, don't baby me. you were cheating on me and trying to kill me. What you don't love me. What are you talking about? And she's like, what? She totally baffled, didn't understand what I was talking about. And then I'm just like, I'm, as you can imagine, all that I experienced, it seemed real to me. And I was upset with her. Not upset, I was angry. And I said to her, and then I said, who was at the house? Who was at the house? She's like, oh, nobody. And I said, who? She goes, oh, well, so-and-so came by with the kids and they were playing and got in the pool. And because I wanted to know in terms of what I experienced with the astrotrack, I said, and then I said was, I don't want to say her name, but I said, was so-and-so at the house? And she's like, oh, yeah, yeah, she came over. And she's like, how did you know that? And I said to her, I was at the house. I saw her and I saw you and I saw my other son. And she said, he said that he saw you and he said that you were going to be okay and you were going to come home. Now, meanwhile, 40 days is a long time. My family, my friends, my wife, she didn't have to cook one meal. One of my great, good buddies, sweetheart of a guy, he set up a Facebook group. They sent Uber Eats. My wife didn't have to cook a meal. She would order for the kids, and she felt guilty because leaving my house to this other hospital in Phoenix, it was an hour door to door. And she had to leave the kids home alone. She would tell them when they would deliver the food, wait till they leave, and then you go to the door and bring the food in. And, they showed up big time. But a lot of people wrote me off for dead. A lot of people gave up on me. A lot of people thought I was going to die. A lot of people thought I deserved to die. And it was hard. But, when she confirmed that I saw that woman there at our house, then for me, the detective came out. Who was the man that was there? And she was like, there was no guy there. What are you talking about? I said, oh, yeah, there were two guys there. I said, and I was just going through. She was like, no, none of that. What are you talking? She was totally baffled. And I said, that's what I saw, And I'll be honest, it took me a while to believe her and trust her. I mean, for real, because everything that I experienced, you guys, in coma, it was just a continuation of life. Not one moment of darkness. Each time when I died and I came back in, and I saw technology, also the future. One of my good buddies, the ex-husband shot them through the iPad, and they died in real life being shot through the iPad. And they came back to life through some Jewish mysticism that they used. It was like, this is one of the things that I was seeing and experiencing. And it seemed like some sci-fi futuristic movie, but it was so real. Like in my coma, they died. And I was trying to do mental telepathy, sending this same friend and my dear cousin, who's like a younger sister to me, I was telling them to come to me. And it came to Arizona in the hospital. And they were outside of my room, but the nurse had closed the door, and I'm trying to call them, their names, and I could hear them, Eric, are you in one of these rooms? And I'm like trying to call, and they wouldn't let them in. Now, this wasn't happening in real life, but this is what I was experiencing. And so, it just was one of these things that it was just on and on and on. But after I awakened, I soon got a voice box. And then I was able to do a video and thank everybody for the prayers and love, and people on my YouTube channel for my astrology business. They were sending donations to Cash App and PayPal. And the comments on my channel, the love, it was inspiring and awesome and humbling. But at the same time, that's all I've extended to every human my entire life is love. And I received it back in the generosity from my family. But a lot of people also cut me off. I had people that I was friends with for 30, 35 years that literally stopped being my friend because I didn't take the vaccine. I had people cut me off afterwards and just dealt with betrayal. I don't want to get too personal with family stuff, but, I lost my family issues, and stuff with my sister and my niece and my nephew, and I don't speak to them anymore and all this stuff. But while I was in coma and I awakened, my wife waited about maybe 9-10 days, I don't remember, for me to get strong enough. And she comes in the hospital room with the chaplain, and I just started panicking. My heart started beating heavy because I knew that she was coming to ask for the divorce. And her and the chaplain, they came in and they told me, excuse me, that on September 21st, 2021, that my mother had died. And there was no reason for that. She survived COVID. She died of pneumonia. And I feel that if I was awakened, she would still be here. Between the people who were, my wife was no longer able to take care of her because she was the daughter-in-law. And my wife and kids were not able to see her. And, my sister was in charge in the hospital. My mother never received antibiotics. Any of us here tonight, any of us can die from pneumonia if we don't get antibiotics. And but when I awakened, I knew my mother was alive. I was delusional. I thought I saw her. I would talk to the kids on the phone, and they said it was so hard, Dad, because you would ask, how's Grandma doing? And we were like, oh, she's good. She's just napping, and it was just, but I started to heal at such a rapid rate. And I got better and better, and I had to stay on the phone for 1 hour and 23 minutes with insurance to get to this rehab facility back to my house. And I fought, and I did, and I got there, and I got transferred. But before I did, after I had awakened, they snuck me antidepressant medicine. I caught them one night, and I said, what is this pill? And they said, oh, this is your antidepressant. I said, what? And she goes, oh, no, this is just to help you sleep. I said, well, that's what the, those little, oh God, I forgot the name of the pills. I was going to say blueberry, but the pills that just help you sleep, natural things, right? Melatonin. And I was like, that's what the melatonin's for. I said, I don't want this. I'm not depressed. And then, the doctor would come in the morning, Mr. Taylor, 6 a.m., how you doing? I was like, not so good. I'm not sleeping. They took my blood 13 nights in a row at 3 o'clock in the morning, complete bloodletting. And eventually I said, why are you taking my blood every night? And then before I'd kind of doze back off at 3:30, they come in and do my vitals. I said, listen, you guys got to come in together. This is absurd. How am I going to heal? I can't sleep. They said, Mr. Taylor, we're taking your blood because your potassium's low. I was like, what? I said, what is it? They're like 4.2. I was like, okay, what should it be? They said, oh, between 4.6 and 4.8. I was like, get out of here with that crap. I said, give me some more of that orange fuzzy stuff and some bananas and leave me the heck alone. I mean, it just, I felt like I was like in the hospital of like Dr. Evil. It was absurd. They're sneaking me medicine. They're doing this blood stuff. And I'm not anti-doctors and hospitals. I've had 13 surgeries, but I've never spent the night in the hospital. And I've had doctors obviously save my kids' lives and my mother, and a lot of dear friends who are doctors. But this was unprofessional, really illegal, and just absurd. And so I told the doctor, and he said, we'll stop it because you requested it, but I don't recommend it. I'm like, whatever. And then after I got the voice box, then they allowed me to eat. But then after I was eating and digesting finally, and I felt so guilty, I would regurgitate, and I still have accidents, and I'm apologizing to the nurses. But the funny part is, I saw one of the nurses, this male nurse, and he told my wife that he was there the second night, and he said there was this beautiful angelic energy as soon as I walked into the room. And my wife said, that was his mother. She just passed away. And he said, I felt it. It was so beautiful. And he said, but he came in and we started talking, and I'm telling him my story. And I wanted to say one of my rhymes for him. I don't know how long I was up, but I got in my voice box and I tried to rhyme and I couldn't remember. And I started to cry. And he's like, no, Mr. Taylor, it's okay. You're going to get all of your memories back. My wife and the family, they didn't know, with all that I went through when I would awaken, if I would even know my name, their name, they hadn't, and the doctors couldn't tell them. They had no idea. 40 days, nobody knew. But everything was fine. Cognitively, I was fine. My shoulder was bent out of place. I lost 36 pounds, mostly muscle. I was back to post high school, college weight. I was down to 168, 170. My shoulder was bent. It was almost like I was broken. It was turned forward as if I was in some serious car accident. But, I just am in a place of gratitude and joy. I got to that hospital on November 6th that night. And day 72, November 7th, was the first time I got to go outside and feel the sun on my body, see the trees, hear the birds. And my wife came with some food, and I got to, I saw my boys on FaceTime, but I got to see them and hug them. And my oldest son, William, my older son is in Texas, but my oldest son at home, William, I hugged him, and I could literally feel the fear leave his body. And he just like melted and cried in my arms, and my twins. And it was just the most beautiful, magical day that I could ever experience, to hold my boys again, and just everything. And I got to that rehab hospital. I had PT, I had breakfast, PT, OT, lunch, PT, OT. When I got there, I told them, I said, listen, I'm a native New Yorker, I'm a Virgo, I have a business, I'm a husband, I got 3 boys at home, I've got to get back to my life, I got bills piling up, I got to get back to making money. I said, your job is to help me. Whatever you ask of me, I will do it and then some. You just make sure I don't do too much that I wind up hurting myself. And they said, okay, Mr. Taylor, we got you. And then the Rocky theme was playing in my head, and I went to work. I was on those machines. I was doing stuff. And just one little funny story, when I was still at the hospital, I was walking in the hallway, the first time I got to walk with the wheelchair, and I stood up and I got on the walker and I took my first couple of steps. And then my wife was videotaping and so excited, and she was going to share it with everybody just to let people know, like, he's alive and he's coming back. So I kind of paused, and I'm like, well, if you're going to videotape me, I'm going to let the people know Eric Taylor's alive and I'm back. So I did like a little dance. And the nurses and my wife were like, what? They didn't know what I was doing, because I literally got off the wheelchair, out of the walker, and I kind of stepped off of it and did like a little dance move. And they were like nervous, and they like, and I was like, I'm okay. I'm just letting everybody know, you videotaped me, that I'm back. I'm here. I survived. I made it. I'm thriving. I will be healed. The victory is with me and God. And I just healed at record rates. The doctors, the nurses were in awe. When I got home November 20th with no oxygen. Scared me half to death, but I got home with no oxygen. And I got off the walker. It took me about a week to get to rehab. And the only people that monitor you are the PT, the pulmonologist PT. And she was like, Eric, I have to say, out of all of my patients, none of them were in coma as long as you, but by far you are healing the fastest and doing the best. So I salute you, keep up the good work, and you're amazing. And the rest is just history. I went back to, as soon as I could, got on the computer, got to that client's birth chart, and she's still like a friend and follows the channel. And I did her chart and got it done and thanked her for being patient. She's like, I prayed for you not to die because I wanted you to do my birth chart. and my miracles have been happening. I'm not supposed to have any improvements in my vision. It's only supposed to get worse as I go through the years. But after coma, I went to the eye doctor and had a slight improvement in my right eye, which is the worst eye. My hearing, right? Being legally blind, I already have my other senses as a superhero. And I always the joke, I could hear an Ant P. Well, my hearing increased. I could hear the binary code in the EMF. I could hear the 00112, I could hear the 001100, and I have to like unplug the internet. Planes and helicopters flying over the house, they sound like they're on my roof. Then my spiritual intuition, like I would just be predicting things, seeing things. And when I would and even now when I do my chart readings, I could see if you have Venus in the 5th house in Gemini, I'll get flashes of that energy beyond my astrological knowledge, like this instant download of describing your placement, and I'll see a visualization of you acting it out. I mean, it's amazing, and it's very humbling. And yes, I've seen UFOs, and I told Sean I may not or will not, I don't know, share it, but I see your beautiful faces, and I guess I'll just share this too. This is my first time in public sharing it. I had a visitation, and I had an alien experience as well. And I don't want to get into all the details of that, but it was really powerful, maybe a little scary. I only was aware of it in dreams, and then there were marks left on my physical body and on my bed. Um, and, um, and that's my story. And I am so honored to be here, and I'm ready for any and all questions. And I just send love and healing energy to all of you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Eric. If you guys can put your questions in the chat, we'll ask Eric. Cindy, if you can put your question in the chat. First of all, I just got to say thank you so much. And, I just love you and Alana. And so for you guys, we met in
In Phoenix.
at the Phoenix conference. And it's just like, when you meet certain people and you just know, like, okay, these are my people, and they're gonna be in my life. I'm gonna be in their life for a long time.
Amen.
That's what Eric and Alana and their beautiful kids are.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so as you and I've talked, and I want to make sure that everybody understands, it can take 7 years minimum to integrate these experiences. Many people, it can take 20 and 40 years.
Yeah.
Some people never integrate. I don't know if I will ever fully integrate. I don't want to. So for Eric to be so brave, I mean, this was just 2021, to come here and talk about stuff that you haven't fully integrated or understood. I just applaud you. It's so awesome.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, so thank you for doing that. And I'm excited to hear as you unpack more of what all this crazy wild adventure that you went on. It's going to be very exciting to learn more.
It's even amazing and totally the holy setup in God how I got to IAMS. On the 2nd year anniversary last year, I just opened up my throat chakra. I had some people, like a spiritual advisor, tell me to let it go because of the controversy around COVID. Don't talk about it. But I intuitively felt it was time and that I didn't need to listen to her. And I felt like it was right for me to share and speak my truth. And I did. And I did a video on my YouTube channel and on my Instagram. Somebody sent that to Jeff Reynolds, aka Jeff Mara, the podcast. And he reached out to me, invited me on. I knew nothing really, honestly, you guys, about NDEs, the experience. I'm still learning. I mean, I am as fresh as they can be. I didn't know, and I didn't know about him. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll come on. Never heard of him in my life. And then I did it, and it was well received, and it has taken me on a journey since last almost a year. November is when I appeared on his podcast. And since then, I believe I've been on about 21 different podcasts, sharing my story and, other gifts. And obviously people are so into the astrology as well, but, basically sharing my experience and speaking my truth. And so I'm greatly in gratitude to Jeff Mara. But then I went to some meeting and I met some woman who was just traveling through town. And my wife and I had gone to this meeting with this group of people, and this woman there was like, well, have you ever heard about IAMS? And I was like, no. And she said, yeah, they're having a thing this year, and I think it's going to be in Phoenix. You should apply. And my wife was like, I don't know. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. And she's like, yeah, baby, you should do that. And so I got the thing. I filled it out right before the deadline. And then I got the letter back. We'd love to have you as a panelist. And I was like, oh my God. And it was just, you know what I mean? So when you take a step forward to be brave and courageous, and you're willing to be uncomfortable and to face any fears or to speak your truth, God in the universe will meet you. Okay. So my mantra is always hashtag deep water faith and faith over fear, because just taking those steps has got me here tonight and to so much, you know.
So I want to, first of all, make sure, because it appears that you were having several dimensions and lives maybe going on at once, and maybe alternate realities, like maybe if you didn't make it, what Alana might have experienced if you weren't there. Like it
I
kind of
thought about
seems
that.
like,
I thought about that, especially with the kids. Yeah, because it was very scary because they were being neglected and mistreated, as well as my wife. She was like,
yeah. So it's almost like, remember Christmas Carol? Scrooge
oh
goes and
yeah,
sees
yeah,
what happens
yes,
when he
yes.
wasn't born. I mean, it sounds like there's all kinds of stuff going on that it's going to be very cool when you unpack it. But what I want to make sure that everybody knows is that when you were there and you saw your wife and you saw your son, that was real. His wife saw him.
Yeah,
His
my
son
son saw
saw him.
me, and I got the confirmation that the friend, she was there too. So I literally astral traveled to my home from the hospital. My son saw
Yeah.
me, I saw him, we hugged, and I saw my wife and the friend. The only person that wasn't there was that evil boyfriend.
That evil ex. Yeah,
He
right.
wasn't there.
So,
The
so
younger
you're
man
blending
villain
like
wasn't
the
there.
real reality with an alternate reality, or your current reality, one of them, with other realities that, or other dimensions, other timelines.
And you know what's fascinating too about that, Sean? I'd share this with you, but I want to share this with the audience. Months later, sitting at home, my wife and I are watching this series, and I recommend any of you guys see it, or if you have seen it, it was called The OA. I think they had 2 seasons, but whoever wrote it, it was like, this guy was kidnapping people and bringing them to death, and he was researching and studying them. But whoever wrote this definitely had an NDE, because it was triggering me like nobody's business, Sean. And while I was watching it, I had to tell her to pause. Like it was like kind of like really intense. But I got the download that when I was in that hospital room and all the people were like kind of against me and taking away my oxygen and I'm sucking for air, the gentleman, the hospital director who was trying to, and I forgot to say, deny my wife the food lady at the hospital, they did not want to put me on the tube feed. My wife was providing the tube feed because we had it from my mother, the Kate Farms. She almost got fired. And the manager of the hospital, he actually snuck in, or not snuck in, he walked into my room and was surprised one day, this was before I awakened, that my wife was there. And he was like, oh, so you're the wife that's been fighting for your husband? Because he almost fired the nutritionist for giving me the tube feed that we provided that really saved me from being a diabetic, right? So when I was walking in that hallway and I did that dance, he walked by, and it was almost like one of those slow motion movie scenes. Because when he walked by, he said to me, good job. But I didn't equate it at that point. It wasn't until I was at home watching the OA that I realized I saw him in coma in my dreams in the hospital room, but I met him in real life, just like one of the nurses and the respiratory nurse. And that respiratory nurse, when I awakened and I got a second roommate, this beautiful gentleman that we're great friends now, Yugoslavian guy from New Jersey, she was working with him and she was mean to him. And I was his voice because he was still on the trach and he couldn't talk. So I would like ring the bell for the nurses and advocate for him. And we were like, I was like his voice in the hospital. And she didn't work with me, but I'm looking and I'm seeing her and I put it together and I got scared because I swear to you, Sean, I wondered, is she in my room? Is she going to try to finish the job off and kill me? This is while I'm awake. But I thought this in my head because I saw her in coma, right? So I'm like, oh my God. And I realized it. I'm like, is this lady going to kill me? And then literally the last weekend I was there, the last week at St. Joseph's, that same gentleman, the nurse's aide who restrained me twice, he came back to the other wing because I was transferred from another wing in that hospital. And he started working with me. And I was like, oh my God, is he going to finish me off? Like, I just wanted to get out of there. I was scared to death of that place, okay? But I saw him after I'm watching OA and it sparked that memory.
Yeah. Speaking of that, that's the value of coming to groups like this and listening to other stories and like our sharing groups, because, first I met Alana. Alana came to the Experiencers Lounge there in Phoenix that I was leading. And as she was telling parts of your story to me, it was actually bringing up stuff with me that I haven't talked about, because I've woken up in shackles with an armed guard and gone through that same dark stuff as and I haven't talked about it a whole lot, but it was something that I haven't met anybody else tell you that has gone through this kind of stuff. And so, there is for me, it's subconscious shadow stuff that I was working through. And you might find that as well. I don't know. But I just love, I mean, we have so much in common, as you know.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead. I want to ask, let's see. So Elkie wanted to know, you experienced the intuition that so many shamans and medicine people have experienced. How do you see this as positive?
Well, I feel that a weight or some sort of demonic energies or curses are lifted off of myself and my family. Um, Life has always been good. I'm very optimistic, a positive person. The sun will shine tomorrow, but I surely have not had an easy life. But I feel like this weight, this freedom now. And I never feared dying. I always feared how I would die. I never wanted drowning or fire or, closed in, trapped. But also, I always thought about the people I would leave behind. And so now, as I'm getting more downloads, and some people call them uploads, whatever, I'm realizing that this was some sort of initiation, and that I am, like I said, I was built for this. My soul chose and accepted this assignment, and I'm ready for all of the gifts to be integrated into my life, and really for me to be of service to the collective, because I love being the intuitive astrologer and relationship coach and helping people find self-love and improving their lives and healing their inner child and reprogramming the subconscious mind. And it's my honor and pleasure to work with the collective every single day.
Yeah. You're talking about all your challenges and everything. And one thing that I say a lot is I still haven't seen that person who's sitting there in their Malibu beach house having a Mai Tai that has a spiritual awakening. Like, there's always going to be some trauma and some crap that you're going to go through. It just doesn't seem to happen the easy way.
But I'll tell you, like through the healing, I just I cherish, the nature. I've grown to connect deeper to the Schumann resonance, Gaia, Mother Earth, hugging trees. And if you ever told a New York City hip hop kid that I'd be hugging trees one day, I'd be like, "Yo, get out of here with that crap."
Right.
You know, saying like, come on, like, I'm a Yankee Knicks Steeler fan. I'm a hip hop kid. I'm an MC. I'm a real dude. I ain't hugging no trees. And now I tell you guys, please go out there, especially tomorrow on the Libra solar eclipse. Go spend some time in nature and hug a tree. Okay? Go do that.
So Kathleen wants to know, do you think you were in hell? Or do you consider these hellish experience? And what did you learn the most from that?
Well, I would say because there were so many vignettes and adventures, and even the spiritual tests, and like the Mars and the London, and I was up in this loft with this spiritual teacher and like learning these different things. Like, I don't think it was hell, but that last one, when I called on God, because that was the first time in coma when I called on God and Jesus, and it felt like very demonic. I wouldn't say hell, but it felt pure evil. But you have to understand, because of the cheating and my wife trying to kill me and the two men and the hitting her and all the demonic sex, and I mean, it just, yeah, it was debauchery. Like it was, you know, all of a sudden in coma, I was in Diddy's house. No, I'm joking. But you know what I mean? It was really bad. But you know what I mean? So no, I don't think it was hell, but it was not nice. It was not nice at all.
We better not see you on any Diddy video.
Oh God, no. Although I did meet him working on the movie Made. Vince Vaughn and Dusty Diamond, God bless his soul, Screech. And I met him, and for a quick second through a common actress friend. But that's the only time I ever met him. And I was down in Maryland when he was at Howard. But yeah, that was it.
So Cindy wants to know, how did you not implode seeing your wife cheating
Oh,
and the sex parties in the basement and other stuff
I mean,
from the spirit world?
it,
But also, what do you think the message of that is? Like, what if you've been able to even process it? Like,
I think for me, I really feel like it was being spiritually tested. I almost feel, honestly, Sean, if I would have given up on the marriage, given up on my kids and the family, I think I may have died. That's how I feel inside. That's how I really feel. I never for 1 second, even there was times in the hospital, there was this big menacing security guard, and he was trying to threaten me and intimidate me. And I just wasn't scared. I was like, hey, do what you got to do. Like that was the thing. I felt like everything was a test, and I passed with flying colors. And I took on every challenge. And even from the wheelchair, like even when I was shot outside my garage, and these different vignettes. But yeah, it was devastating. It wasn't easy. I'm not saying that at all. It was torture. It was torture. But thank you for the question, Cindy, Kathleen, and Elka.
what's the OA movie? It's on Netflix, Cindy. It's
Yes,
just called OA. Just Google it,
it's called.
right? It's
I think
just
it's called The OA, and it is.
the OA.
It is so good. Anybody that's here
Yeah.
tonight and you're into NDEs, you got to watch that one. That was bone chilling and mind boggling. The second season wasn't as good, but it gets really complex and you got to follow it. But it was deep, really
Oh
deep.
yeah, and Eileen put some information in there for anyone who's interested. But yeah, it's on Netflix. You can
And I also want to say that some of the things that I experienced in there have already come true. Um, in terms of like where I saw, unfortunately, my niece and my wife's friend as kind of not being nice, and now they're no longer in our lives. So it was almost like I was, and we talked about this, Sean. It was almost like certain things, like, became real eventually in real life. Like,
I
and that's kind of weird to me energetically. But I'm not, like I dreamt about my wife before I met her. You guys, I dreamt about 9/11 2 years before it happened. So I have Uranus and Libra in my 12th house in my natal birth chart. So if you know anything about that, Uranus is the spiritual awakener giving you downloads, and the 12th house is dreams, fantasies, subconscious, unconscious mind. So like I've always been tapped in to futuristic things. When was in relationships with different ladies, I could literally see them in my dreams when they were no longer like with me physically. I could see them at night in my dreams. So I've been tapped in a lot of ways like that spiritually. But oh boy, this was. I'm just always in gratitude that I had to learn, you guys, how to walk, talk, swallow. I felt terrible the first times. A couple times I tried to eat food. I, regurgitated all over the nurses. Oh my God, and I'm apologizing to them. But this will, guys, make you guys laugh. So not only am I entertaining all the nurses in the hospital, I'm like doing my rhymes. I started doing astrology readings. They're like sneaking in my room. Hey, I'm a Gemini and I'm dating a Sag. What do you think? Oh, I'm this. My ex-husband was a Taurus. Like, so it was. It became like my room became like the party room. And if you knew me in person, you'd be like, "Oh, Eric, I'm not surprised you were doing that."
So Karen Michelle would like to know, has the prophetic aspects continued with you? And have they been enhanced?
Yeah. So when Sean came over, we shared with him a story, and this was part astrology knowledge, but part I got the download. My wife went hiking one morning, and she left real early. It was during the summer, so it was before 5 a.m. The sun was just rising. It was probably she probably left 4:50, and I was too tired when I heard her leave. But I just she left. I felt something was wrong, and I just said I knew she was going to have an accident hiking. And I sent her a text, but I felt like she wanted to go, but then I just kept praying, but I kept having visions. And then I was so tired and I had a crazy work day and I just wanted to try to get some sleep. So I said a quick prayer, and I basically just realized, I said, she's going to get hurt, but she's going to be okay. She's not going to die. So just, whatever, and just try to get a little rest. Maybe I slept for another 5, 10 minutes. On her way home from the hike, she calls me and I'm like, hey, babe, you okay? She's like, I don't want you to be concerned, but I had a bad accident. And I was like, oh God. And I did send her the text, but she still, whatever. And she fell and got a jumping choya stuck in her head. She bruised her head, her knees. She was bleeding on her body. I mean, it was crazy. And then just last Wednesday, before my son had a football game, and it was real far away, and because we have younger kids, we couldn't go to the game. But there's a teammate, and his grandmother is helps the coach, and she's like the mother of the team. And I told my wife, I said, text her. And she's like, why? I said, just text her and keep an eye on William. And I don't know if I shared with her, but I basically knew that my son was going to get hurt, but not like a bad concussion, because he already suffered one. I didn't mention that, right? We dealt with all this other stuff, but my son was assaulted in school and got a concussion at 8 years old in summer school, trying to get ahead. It was immersion school where he's learning English and Spanish, and the school system and principal and vice principal, they covered it up, and we couldn't sue. I mean, we've been through hell, you guys. But anyway, he was okay, but he hurt his back, and now he's feeling better. But he missed school Thursday morning, but I saw that. So yes, I am seeing more and more visions, and I'm seeing things coming to reality. So just no fear, but there may be two more severe hurricanes coming along that southeast, and maybe even Louisiana, Texas around October 5th and around October 11th. It's just what I'm sensing. So just, do with that whatever you will. But yes,
Thank you, Eric.
I'm seeing
What would so we're need to wrap up. So what would you like to have your parting message be for everyone about your experience? If you could name, one thing, if you could name one thing that you've learned.
I would say forgive all your friends and family. Don't hold on to things. If you can, and she's still alive, love and hug on your mother. Vibrate from your heart chakra and true love. Stay in gratitude, joy, and authenticity, which is the highest frequency by far. Be your true authentic self at this time in the age of Aquarius. And please, always faith over fear. There's nothing to fear. And trust in God's source creator, whoever that is for you, and know that you are all spiritually gifted and amazing, each and every one of you. And I love you.
Thank you so much. And if you guys want to check out more about him, it's bigeastrology.com.
Yes.
And I just want to thank you so much, Eric. And come to the sharing group on the 15th and share about your UFO that you didn't really get into tonight, if you feel like it. That would be very cool.
I think I may be able to do that. I have to check the date.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And I want to give a shout out to Alana. Last time I looked, your camera was off, but you are so amazing. And I loved getting to spend time with you and your beautiful boys. I think her camera's still off.
Yeah, she's at practice.
She's probably cooking one of those amazing dinners. She's an amazing cook.
She's at football practice with the boys.
Oh, she is? Oh, okay. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. so much for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
And there'll be a replay on the Hawaiian's YouTube and also on Conscious Awakening Network. And I look forward to seeing you all on the 15th for our sharing group. And thank you again, Eric. Just loved having you share your experience, and I love that we get to know each other.
It's a pleasure.
So thank you.
God bless you. I appreciate you.
Okay, aloha, everyone. Have a great night. Try to stay away from that crazy political stuff if you can.
It's so low vibrational, you guys. It's not worth it.
But I really feel honored and respected that you chose to come here rather than listen to that stuff. Because certainly a lot of people did. A lot of people chose to go into that instead. So really honored. So thank you again, everyone. And we will see you on the 15th for the sharing group. Aloha and have a wonderful night.